Welcome to Overtime with Taylor Tanner, NFL edition. And David Newland is back once again. He's been great on the show. And man, we got a lot of quarterbacks to talk about, don't we?
Yeah, we sure do. Where do you want to start with?
We'll start with Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. Goff has been looking really good. He was perfect, 18 of 18. How was he able to stay so perfect?
That's a good question. I mean, NFL, it's usually never that easy. And it's not like you watch the game. It's not like he was taking a bunch of screens and little short passes. He was, being aggressive for the most part. They were killing him with those crossing routes. The big issue with Seattle was they weren't able to get pressure. I know they were missing some players due to injury. I know Byron Murphy, Boye Mafe, and I think one or two other players on the defensive line were injured. So they weren't really – I mean, the Lions have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and they weren't able to get any pressure. So Goff had all day. I mean, he had more touchdown catches and incompletions, which for a quarterback like Jared Goff is a pretty crazy statistic. But yeah, he was great. They looked sharp. He didn't start off the year too well. He was pretty bad against the Buccaneers. He was bad against the Rams. Bunch of turnover-worthy plays. But this week he locked in, and offense looked a lot better. They had that big play to James Williams. They were hitting Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. They were able to get their weapons involved and played an overall efficient game.
Yeah, it was really good. And I'm gonna ask you a little trivia question. Who was the last quarterback who held the record for most passes completed
in a row or ever? Like, what do you mean?
Just perfect passing, just like Goff
no
did.
Idea.
You don't know. Hey, think he has a movie about him. He's a Hall of Famer.
Don't put me on the spot, Taylor. I don't know.
Kurt Warner. He was 10 for 10.
Kurt Warner. Okay.
He held the record, which pretty reasonable. Kurt Warner was known as the efficient passer. He wasn't. It's kind of like a Jared Goff, honestly. Really good comparison, those two are. And Goff, if he keeps doing what he's doing, especially with the weapons, and hey, Devontae Adams might go to the Lions. He might.
I don't even know if they need him, really, because they already have a lot of mouths to feed. So I don't know, because I know Devontae wants his targets. I mean, that'd be great. I don't know if they really even need him, honestly. Honestly, I'd rather invest in the defense because their offense looks good. They got great offensive line, good two running backs, good wide receivers. Defense and secondary is still a bit of an issue. The Seahawks are able to exploit them with, DK Metcalf, Geno Smith, JSN. So I think that if they have any issues, and the Lions are probably the best roster in the NFL at this point, the only issues would be the secondary on defense, maybe the linebackers. So I think if you're going to make a big play for a player like Devontae, I'd rather invest in someone on the secondary.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This defense does need a little bit of help, but the Lions are looking really good. This whole NFC North is looking really good. Of course, the Vikings are undefeated. We'll touch on them a little bit later. We got the Packers. They did get blown out in the first half by the Vikings, but they came back in the end, almost won the game. But, the onside kick rules nowadays just stink, man. It's like you're never going to come back late.
I don't know why they even changed it. There is no reason for them to change the rule. I understand the kickoff thing was for player safety, but the onside kick, you have to declare it, and it doesn't make any sense. It makes sense because you'll never get a Saints, they did it in the Super Bowl,
right,
they did it
right.
at halftime.
Yeah,
you'll never see that again, which is one of the most iconic plays of this millennia.
Right.
And you'll just never see anything like that again because of the rules. It's stupid.
Yes, it's dumb, but hey, I don't know why they did it, but they did it. But a lot of teams now, I know when the Packers kicked their onside kick, they brought their punter out and they kind of did a drop kick. The punter just dropped the ball and just kicked it because I guess you get more of a different bounce when you do it like that besides just kicking it off the tee,
Yeah, it did not work though. It went straight to the Vikings.
Yeah, didn't it?
It was over. It was over before it even started. But yeah, Packers, Jordan Love, too many turnovers. Offense looked sloppy. And, they almost backdoored it, but I don't think that game was as close as it looked. Vikings pretty much handled them. The Packers are just being incredibly sloppy.
Yeah, it was just one of those games. Matt LaFleur, the offense wasn't really running. A bunch of drops. I know Wicks finished the game with a pretty good game, but he had 9 receptions, and I think he also had 9 drops. So it was crazy. Wicks, he just couldn't hold on to the ball.
They kind of look like early last year Packers when Jordan Love was first starting, and it wasn't clicking. So they need to get back to the second half of last year form.
Yeah,
where they're out there, playing good.
Yeah, I guess it's just because he was injured. He didn't really get a lot of reps the last couple weeks, so Just kind of got to get in the groove again. I think we have the Rams this week. Should be a win since the Rams are really, really banged up. Both of their starting receivers are out.
Yeah. Hopefully they can take advantage of Trey White in a kind of a questionable secondary with the Rams, and then get back on page because they need to catch up to the Vikings.
Yeah, and catch up to the Lions because the Lions are looking like
Oh yeah, true.
they could go on a run late. The Bears, they could put a scare on some of these teams, but let's face it, the Packers own the Bears from the last like 20 years. So I'm really not worried about the Bears as a Packers fan.
Yeah, I think the Bears are going in the right direction, but I don't think that's anything for 2024. If anything, that'll be a next year thing if Caleb can step up in his second year.
Yeah, Caleb looked good in the last game, but let's talk about another quarterback, a rookie. We talked about him last show. He's just been so good. Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders, they've just been clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, he's been hitting the easy stuff. They call it the easy stuff. Screens, short routes. But a lot of young quarterbacks, Caleb Williams is not hitting the easy stuff. They're making it harder than they need to be. Jaden Daniels is staying on target when it's like the short stuff. Getting the easy stuff, and when nothing's open, he's an athletic guy. He uses his legs to scramble. The only thing I will say is he's been great these past two games, but it's a good bet that he's probably played against two of the three worst pass rushers in the NFL. The Bengals could not get any pressure, and nor could the Cardinals. Both those teams could not put any pressure on him, and were not blitzing him. Especially the Cardinals. The Cardinals played a lot of 3 and 4 man rushes and dropped 8, dropped 7, and he had all day to pick them apart. And so I don't know who they play next. I don't remember, but it'll be interesting to see if they're able to create some pressure and see what it looks like when Daniels is under pressure. Because as he can show, when he's kept clean, he can make all the throws.
Yeah, he can make those throws when he is clean in the pocket. And man, this Washington Commanders team through the first 4 weeks of the season, they ranked number 2 in total offense since 2000. That's better than the Packers 2020 season with MVP Rodgers. That's better than the Chiefs when they had that explosive offense. So hey, this Commanders offense is legit. And who would have guessed it at the beginning of the season? You said Cliff Kingsbury is going to lead this offensive power for the Commanders to just be elite. And man, Cliff Kingsbury's being a heck of an OC.
I don't want to rate on the parade or be negative, but I said it a couple weeks ago with the Saints that, they were bound to regress, and they did immediately. The same thing's going to happen to the Commanders. They're not going to be whatever they had, like 10 or 15 straight scoring drive. That's not going to keep up. They will regress, but I mean, if they can just keep things going, keep Daniels clean, offensive line's been playing good. He'll have a good rookie season, and they can push for the playoffs. But I mean, they're not going to be on the same clip, same efficiency as they are right now. It's just not possible.
Yeah, you're right. It's going to be tough. But would you say Jaden Daniels could be Rookie of the Year?
Uh, you know, yeah, he's the front runner right now. Him and Malik Neighbors probably tied for first. He's a quarterback, so he'll have that kind of built-in advantage. But yeah, if he keeps playing like he does right now, then yeah, he will be Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And we'll still talk about some quarterbacks. And we talk about regression, how Jaden Daniels is due to regress, you think. I don't think he will. I think he'll still ball. But there's a quarterback who has majorly regressed. What do you have on him?
Who, Trevor? Trevor Lawrence?
Of course, T-Law.
Yeah. I'll say since, and I kind of had this concern in college that we talk about Jaden Daniels taking the easy stuff. Trevor Lawrence really has never been good at that. When he was in college, he had Justin Ross and T. Higgins on the outside, so he could just throw those. He likes to throw it deep and throw jump balls. And, that was fine in college when you're going against future plumbers or whatnot. But in the NFL, these corners, they're better at defending that kind of stuff. And he's just not really good at taking the easy stuff. The routes, the short passes you need to hit, he'll miss some of those, or the ball placement isn't right. He missed 2 huge throws in that Texans game. They probably win if he hits that. Those deep passes. I think one was to Christian Kirk, but he misses a lot of throws that he has to make, and it seems to be worse this year, which is unfortunate for the Jaguars because they just signed him to a big contract. Not a good quarterback under pressure. He when he's being pressured, he speeds up his process, and I think that leads to some of these misses where he's going a little bit too fast through his progressions and trying to hit a play. So, yeah, he's not been playing good. It's probably the worst start he's had since, his rookie year when he wasn't good. So it just sucks to see him, kind of regressing back to like a mediocre quarterback when he's been pretty. He's never. There's some Trevor Lawrence truthers out here who think he has been a great quarterback.
He's been
I don't
average
think
at best. Yeah, he's been
he's
average at best.
he's been a good starter. Like a decent starter throughout his career, but he hasn't been near the borderline top 10 at times. Never top five. I don't think. And this year he's playing. Around 20th. He's not, and you're paying him $55 million. You need him to step up.
Yeah, it's tough to see this just Jags team. They have the Colts coming up, and the Colts. Hey, Joe Flacco came in, and Joe Flacco looked really good. Do you think the Colts should start Flacco over Anthony Richardson?
I think they should. Richardson. They want him to be the future, so I don't want him getting hurt again. But I think it would be good to see Flacco start. He's been a good quarterback in the past. He came in last year for the Browns, and the offense looked better because Deshaun Watson can't read a defense, and Joe Flacco knows how to run an offense. So the offense automatically looked better when he stepped in. I could easily see it being a kind of similar thing with the Colts. He can step in, the offense can get better. I know they've had issues getting their rookie wide receiver Adonai Mitchell involved because Richardson's just missing throws and stuff like that. So maybe Flacco can get the wide receivers better involved because he's a little more accurate, knows what to do when reading the defense a little more than Richardson does. So I I guess depending on how he plays, I wouldn't rush Richardson back. I would let Flacco play, see what the offense looks like, the little more experienced quarterback at the helm. But I wouldn't, he was a top five pick last year. I wouldn't, bench him or anything. I don't think he's played to that degree. He obviously hasn't been stellar, but I don't think he's played bad enough to be benched.
Yeah, it's a strange situation with Indy because Anthony Richardson looks good, but he's also just looked like he just doesn't know what to do back there. And Joe
He
Flacco,
just makes stupid decisions. He tries to do too much and he misses easy throws.
yeah, that's it. And Joe Flacco is a guy who's not going to do too much. He's going to make the easy throws, take what the defense gives you. He might burn you up above the top a couple times, but it's an interesting situation. I don't know what they should do because Anthony Richardson, he's good, but Joe Flacco I think is going to put him in a better position to win more games.
For this year, yeah, I guess it's more about like, do you value this year more than the future? Because if you value the future more, still you need Richardson to get those snaps. Because remember, he only played 1 year of starting in Florida, and then he played 5 games last year, so he needs the reps, he needs the experience. So I think if you start Flacco to win for this year, you're disservicing yourself in the future. But it's all about what the Colts want to do. Flacco's 38, 39. He's not going to be your future. Um, so yeah, Richardson just needs to stay healthy. I don't know if he thinks he's Josh Allen. Josh Allen can take these hits and keep going. Richardson to this point in his career cannot, whether that's, just he's been unlucky with the injuries or he's just not durable. If that's the case, he needs to stop playing like Josh Allen and start, you know, being safer, taking less hits.
Yeah, it's going to be very very interesting. And we got talked about a lot of quarterbacks. We got one more quarterback to talk about, and he's maybe the worst quarterback in the league. Would you agree?
Well, Levis, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I'm trying to think of players, quarterbacks who I would rather have, or I
Daniel
would I would
Jones.
take Levis over.
Daniel Jones. I don't know. Daniel Jones and Will Levis both pretty bad.
Yeah, they're both pretty bad. But Levis, he had another horrible pick this game. Throw it right. I mean, in his defense, usually don't see it. I think it's a defensive end dropped into coverage, but he threw it right to him. No excuse for it. He threw it right at the defensive lineman. I was watching the game and I thought I kind of forgot he was playing because it looked like he threw it to the Dolphins player on purpose. But he got injured this game. Mason Rudolph comes in and he plays a little more efficient. Kind of similar thing with Flacco. I wouldn't rush Levis back. If he's injured, I'd let him. I wouldn't bench him right now, but I'd let him sit, let him recover fully, and see what this Titans offense looks like when they're not turning the ball over twice a game because of Will Levis. I mean, you could argue that, if Levis doesn't have those turnovers, they're 3-1, maybe 2-2. They definitely win the Bears game if he doesn't do that pick six. They might beat the Jets if he, doesn't have that crazy fumble. Um, and then they beat the Dolphins. I mean, they would have lost to the Packers regardless. But the pick six at the beginning of the game certainly didn't help. So I think we know what Mason Rudolph is. He's a backup. I think it'd be good to see what this offense looks like with Mason Rudolph, who, may be a little less turnover prone than Levis. And, if Rudolph looks good, maybe keep him in the starter. But if Rudolph struggles, bring Levis back, So we'll see. Will Levis's career prospects aren't looking great right now. He just hasn't, if anything, he looks worse than he did as a rookie, which is alarming.
Yeah, it's very very tough because Will Levis he had all the hype. He was in the Hellman's commercial about mayonnaise, and he's been getting all this publicity, all this money, and he's just been terrible. Have you seen the generational run of these memes that are made about him? There's a photo in Lee's every game of him just screwing up, and he
Yeah.
looks terrible. The last game, I believe it was a picture of him just like crying on the sideline,
Yeah,
like
he's
in
making a
pain.
stank face, and then
Yeah,
the my favorite was the Levis when he's like on his knees after the fix it.
yeah, and he's just like, oh no, no, and he
That's such a
threw the
funny
pick.
picture.
It's hilarious. That's going to follow him around for a long time. But I agree. The Titans just need to run with Rudolph. Let him play a little bit. They look decent with it. I mean, this Tennessee team is not going to go to the playoffs. Their season is pretty much done. I hate to say it, but they're pretty much done. Just like the Jaguars, both of their seasons are pretty much under wraps. You just got to develop the young guys, let them play, just see what you got, look in the mirror, reflect, be like, hey, next year's coming. We can play really good ball next year, which is hard to do in the NFL, especially when it's such a win now league. Like, we want to win ASAP. But hey, that's just what they got to do. They just got to take a step back and reflect. Maybe they change a bunch of things and they could go on a generational run of winning 7, 8 straight games, but they're not the Packers of 2019 when they ran the table that year.
Yeah. Luckily for Bill Callahan, he is a rookie coach, so the odds of him getting fired after this year is pretty low. Someone like Doug Peterson, yeah, Doug Peterson has to win now, or if he loses to Colts, he might get fired. He might get fired soon. But Bill Callahan's not going to get fired this year, more than likely. So they can, you know, they're not expected to win this year, so they can kind of play their young guys and develop. Luckily, their first round pick, eighth overall, I can't remember his name, the left tackle, he's looked good out of Bama, so he's been pretty good. But yeah, the offense been struggling. The defense isn't as good as it was under Vrabel. You just hope to build something for next year at this point.
Yes, of course. And now we're done talking about these sorry teams. Let's throw these sorry teams away. Let's talk about some good teams, some undefeated teams. The Chiefs and the Vikings. Both of these guys are undefeated. Who do you think will be the first to fall?
The Chiefs have, you know, kind of squeaked out some victories. They looked great against the Ravens, but they barely beat the Bengals, barely beat the Chargers, barely beat the Falcons. So they've kind of Mahomes hasn't played great, but Mahomes is still Mahomes, so you kind of expect him to bounce back eventually. But losing Rasheed Rice, is he going to kind of be like the same thing it was last year, where the offense is struggling? Defense is still really good, but and then the Vikings, they've been the most impressive team so far. Sam Darnold against the Packers was kind of showing some old Sam Darnold. He had a drop pick. He didn't play as good as he was in the previous weeks, but he wasn't horrible. He made some great throws to Justin Jefferson. But looking at the schedule coming up, the Vikings, they go to London to play the Jets. That could be a tough game depending on how the Jets offense plays. Got the Lions at home. Obviously going to be a tough game. At the Rams should be a W. And the Colts, which, probably should be a W as well. Chiefs, they got the Saints at home. Saints haven't looked great the last 2 weeks, but I still think they're a good team. They go to San Francisco for the Niners. That's gonna be a tough game, obviously. They go to the Raiders, which probably should be a W, and then they have the Buccaneers at home. So I think the Saints and the Vikings will lose one of these next two games. Uh, whether the Vikings to the Jets or the Lions or the Chiefs, the Saints, or at the Niners. Whether who loses first, I'll say the Chiefs. I'll say the Chiefs. I say they lose the same week. I say they both lose next week to the Vikings to the Lions and then Chiefs to the Niners. So
Yeah, that week
I think
is
that
really really tough. The Jets Vikings in London. That's going to be an early game for us Americans. We got to be up at what, 8 a.m., 9 a.m. to watch that game?
I think it's 9:30, right?
Yeah, that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough waking up watching that game. But Chiefs-Saints should be a really, really good game, especially if the Saints can kind of go back into their offensive bag. But this Chiefs defense is really good. It's going to be interesting this next week. A lot of good football. And speaking of good football, Thursday night football, NFC South matchup, Bucks and Falcons. This is going to be a heck of a game, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, NFC South's pretty contested right now. Saints and Falcons both 2-2. Bucks at 3-1. Bucks have looked like the better team in that division. But, divisional games, you play them twice a year. You never really know how they're going to turn out. Upsets happen all the time. I think these two teams are pretty similar in the, NFL hierarchy. I had the Falcons, or excuse me, I had the Bucks higher. Whoever wins this game, I think will take the lead. Because, yeah, for sure, if the Bucks win, they'll have the lead. And then the Falcons will have the tiebreaker over the Saints, even if the Saints win. So whoever wins this game will have the lead in the division. Buccaneers have looked great. Besides that one game against the Broncos, Baker's been sharp, accurate, and I think he's had the quickest time to throw of his career, which is good for him. He's had issues holding on the ball too long, and trying to make it be a playmaker, which he's not really. But he's been getting the ball quick. They have the playmakers around: Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rashad White out the backfield. Kate Otten has looked good. The only thing for the Buccaneers is I wish they had, a better run game. That's been an issue for them since Brady was there. And the secondary's been banged up. So hopefully, if they can come back, I think this should be a pretty easy W for the Bucks. The Falcons, or maybe not easy, but the Falcons have looked good as well. They've gotten better since Kirk has gotten there. They struggled at first, but the offense has looked better. Tyler Algier's great. Bijan's great. They're getting their weapons involved a little bit more, getting Drake London involved. They beat the Saints, but I'm not sure if they were the better team in that game. They got some lucky breaks. If Rashid Shaheed doesn't make that horrible play trying to field the kick, they might not win that game. And they squeaked out with a 50-something yard field goal. I think the Buccaneers will win. I think it should be a good game. Pretty good offenses on both sides. Kind of mediocre defenses. But I do think the Bucs will win because the Falcons don't have a good pass rush. And Baker is a good quarterback when he's able to be kept clean, get the ball out. So I think the Buccaneers will win because the Falcons won't be able to pressure Baker that much.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun game, going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be within the 20 to 30 points for both teams. I don't think it's going to be an offensive juggernaut show, but I think it'll be a good game. Good defense you'll be seeing, good offense you'll be seeing. But Falcons are the favorite because they're at home pretty much. Really in the NFL, whoever's the home team is going to be the favorite, especially when you're this close rated. Like if it was
because you get a home team gets 3 points for the spread pretty much every time, right?
Yeah, pretty much every single time home team, unless you're like the Chiefs playing the Jaguars and you're in Jacksonville. The Chiefs are still going to be favored.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, it's going to be a tough game. Baker so far this season has 988 yards and 8 touchdowns. It's a really, really good season for him. Kirk Cousins finally getting into the rhythm of everything. If he can find his targets, I'm praying he throws to Drake London because I got Drake London on fantasy, man. He's been pretty good the past couple weeks. But hey, I need a big game from London today. I hope Bijan can run that ball. Falcons got the running advantage over the Bucs. As you said, the Bucs really don't have anyone to really pound that ball. They have a very inconsistent running game. But if the Falcons can run the ball with Bijan and throw it with Kirk, this could be a Falcons win. And I personally think the Falcons are going to win this game.
I had the Falcons at first, and I changed my mind. So we'll see what happens.
All right, man. Well, that's all we have here today. Thanks, David, for joining us. As always, Thursdays, we'll have David Newland on for NFL Thursdays. You've been listening to Overtime with Taylor Tanner.